Everybody has heard of old man strength, but the question is it even a real thing? Alrighty, ladies and gents, welcome to another arm wrestling video. Now in this video, we're gonna be looking at old man strength. We're gonna be asking the question, is it even a real thing? It's a bit of an elusive thing at the end of the day, but most importantly, we're gonna be asking the question, how on earth do you get it? Do you have to just get old, or is there another way? Okay, so to answer this question today, we're gonna do a few things. First of all, we're gonna go and visit a father and son duo and see how their strength balances relative to each other. I'm then gonna get on the phone to the man in the thumbnail, Todd Hutchins, a man who in his mid-50s is still dominating the world of strength. And then finally, I'm gonna show you how you can train specifically within the gym to increase your old man strength. Alrighty guys, we're on the road heading down to the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. We're going to be meeting up with good friends, Andrew and Ethan, and they're a father and son combo, and we're going to see if among them old man strength reigns supreme or not, and we're going to have some fun on the arm wrestling table. Alrighty lads, welcome. We got Andrew and Ethan here. Thanks for having us guys. How are we?
Good.
Good
Shelf?
stuff.
Good.
Not too bad, not too bad. Now, first questions first that I have to ask. How old are we both? Dad?
I'm 50 in 2 weeks' time.
50 in 2 weeks' time. And
21.
All right, so 50 and 21. Now, the question is also, what do you guys weigh? Just so we got some perspective on things.
I'm about 90 kilos right now.
About
90
70.
90 kilos and 70. And in the gym, fundamentally, who's stronger? Like, if you were in a gym doing bicep curls or a bench press or something like that, what are we looking at?
I'd probably have the edge, I think, a little bit.
He probably would,
Yeah.
and if I attended the gym, we might find out.
Yeah.
So not
What's a gym?
So not particularly gym active versus
A
gym
little
active
bit
and
more,
young,
yeah.
but you got the old man factor. The old man factor. Look at that. Look at that. Just look at that forearm. That's nice. That's nice. Just look at your forearm. Just flex. Okay, so both you guys have been arm wrestling for what? 2 years?
I'm about a year. Ethan's about
Year
2
and a half,
years.
yeah. 2 years.
Okay, so year and a half, 2 years on the young fella, and 1 year on dad. All right, so let's find out what happens on the table. So, guys, we're gonna get. Oh, this is my young fella behind here. He can't beat me in an arm wrestle yet, but he's planning on catching me. So, how long do you think it's gonna take before you beat me?
A few years.
Just a few. All right, we'll come back to that one. Anyway, all right, we're gonna get the camera set up and we'll get these guys arm wrestling, and we'll see how the old man factor plays out. Alrighty, guys. So let's line up the arm wrestle. You guys know what you're doing, so get these shoulders nice and square. All right, close your thumbs, close your hands, and go. There it is. Old man 1-0. All right, well, let's make this a best of three. Let's mix it up, and maybe the young muscle just takes a bit of a warm up, because we always tend to think that an old man's like a chain. It's instantaneous, where a young man's tendons are a bit more elastic. So, all right, close your thumbs, close your hands, and go. Whoa! Look at this. Good effort. Nice fight. And there it is. And there it is. 2-0. Well, guys, it looks like old man strength is still supreme. Interesting, because fundamentally, Ethan in the gym, ladies and gentlemen, has bigger numbers in bicep curls and whatnot. But you can see the instantaneous strength, or the instantaneous access to strength from having stiff and rigid and strong supporting tendons allow dad to disengage the son, and there we go. So old man strength it is.
All over.
Good stuff, guys. Alrighty guys, now that we've seen old man strength in action, it's time to head home and give Todd Hutchins a call. Todd Hutchins is an elite arm wrestler. He's been dominating the sport for a long time. He's 55 years old and he's still at the top of the game. So we're gonna give him a call and find out everything there is to find out about his old man strength. Alright, Todd Hutchins, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And you know why we're here today, Todd? It's to ask the big question, is old man strength a real thing? What do you reckon? Is it real?
Oh, it absolutely is a real thing.
It absolutely is. What is old man strength? Is it tendon stiffness? Is it joint integrity? What is it?
It's the cumulative effects of decades of strength training. So if I mean, obviously you train to get stronger, and the longer you train, the stronger you get. So
Okay.
by the time you're an old man, you've been training for 30 years versus a young man who's been training for 5. So,
So it's not some sort of voodoo magic thing that happens when you get old. It's a product of consistent effort, essentially.
correct. Age is not an advantage for being strong like weight is. No matter what your age is, if you gain weight, you gain strength. But gaining years doesn't necessarily make you stronger. But what typically the people who have old man strength have just had a lot of time to put a lot of mass and hard work into their body. And that results in bone growth, tendon growth, muscle density. Even if they don't have a lot of mass on them, their muscles are a lot denser than those big bloated muscles you get in your first 2 or 3 years of bodybuilding training, where you're all toned up and you're all poofy, but you're not, the muscle structure isn't really hard and the muscles aren't all striated and stuff.
One of the things for me that I find interesting about the concept of old man strength is comparing muscular strength to joint integrity and the subsequent reliability of access to strength that joints give you. You see something there? Or like, I asked the question because I feel like I can often put a young guy next to an older guy who has the same 1 rep max in a bicep curl, yet put them on the table and it's just it's all over the place. How do you see the correlation between muscular strength and?
Well, in that example, see, I was going to go a different route. Usually when someone's commenting old man strength, they're commenting on an action, a feat, or an exercise that the old man's been specialized in.
Yep.
Right. So if he's like folding up frying pans, or if he's doing 1-arm pull-ups, or he's doing something that old man has trained and gotten very good at, versus, like the strong men in the carnivals, they could do all these big feats of strength only because the people in the audience have never tried them before. So the guy showing off, he's been doing it 10 times a day for 10 years.
Yep.
The strong guy in the audience has never, ever touched that barbell before. Let that guy in the audience have 2 or 3 weeks with that barbell, he'll lift it.
Yeah.
But as far as, okay, but back to your example of, and this, I guess I could tie that analogy in. So you have a 50-year-old guy and a 20-year-old guy that have the same 1 rep max, but after years of training, that 50-year-old guy's trained a lot of different versions. I mean, he's had 30 years of training, forward curls, reverse curls, hammer curls, strap curls, where the young guy, he's just had a few years primarily on 1 curl or not. So they got the same 1 rep max in the exercise you picked, but the old man probably has a 1 rep max in variations of that exercise that the young guy doesn't, only because the young guy's never done them.
Yep.
So that all around, it's the same thing with farm boys. When I was first starting out, the farm boys were always tough. These people who work with their hands all the time, they weren't real quick, but no matter where you put them on the table, they just felt like a rusty bolt. They just fought you all the time. There was never an aisle where they just popped open and you could pin them. They were just grueling no matter where you were on the table, only because what Westside Barbell calls the conjugate method. If they've worked all these different various forms and exercises over their life, so they were strong. They had a high level of strength in a lot of different positions or vectors. Where a young guy hitting the gym, he's doing all the classic exercises, so they went up. But if you don't have 20 bars to curl in your gym, you're only going to be strong curling the 1.
Yeah.
Where the farmers, the farmers lifted pigs, he's lifted cows, he's lifted tractors, he's lifted babies, I mean, he's just good at lifting shit.
Yeah, it's very true, very relatable. My old man is an old farmer and doesn't train in the gym at all, yet his hands feel amazing and he wins a lot of arm wrestles because of it. But Todd, when we think about people who are able to beat people that
seemingly look and can easily be perceived as stronger in the gym, you're like the epitome of that. You've beaten a lot of people that on the surface level can appear to be bigger and stronger. Can you tell us about your recent match with Lachlan Adair from Australia, how you overcame him and what it was in a physicality sort of sense that was the difference?
Well, there's probably a couple of different things there, but it goes back to like when we were talking about the strongman in the carnival, we're talking about the strongman who's done something hundreds of times and the audience members never done it. I've been arm wrestling for a long time. I've arm wrestled a lot of people that are just way better than me and stronger than me, but in time you get experience to try different things out. So if you go, well, if this don't work, I'll try this. So you can find different avenues. So it comes down to experience. But I've also been beat in a lot of different ways. So you just get the more you practice something, the better you get at it. The match with Lachlan,
I want to ask the question. A couple of questions. First of all, how many years have you been arm wrestling?
22.
And how old are you?
Well, 21. This I started in 2000.
And how old are you now, Todd?
I'm 55.
55. Okay. And so going back on the match with Lachlan, when you say you had experience losing in different ways and finding different avenues, are you referring to saying you have better execution of technique, or are you saying you're conditioned because of all of the variety and the ways that you've pulled compared to Lachlan?
I think I am. I think if Lachlan picked 3 or 4 of his pet lifts, he'll be stronger than me. Okay. But I think if we picked 20 lifts, all related to arm wrestling, I would probably win 13 out of the 20, or I'd win 14 out of the 20. He would win his pet lifts. He just hasn't done all the ones I've done.
Gotcha.
Because in my 20 years of arm wrestling, when you lose a match, you figure out where you're weak, what you had to go work on. You work on that until it's not holding you back anymore. Then you find a different weak spot. Well,
I gotcha.
And if you go to any experienced arm wrestler's house that trains at home, what do they have? 30, 40 handles, 25 arm wrestling contraptions, and they go, "Oh, I used to do this when I was younger. Do you do it now?" Nope. Well, so what happens is the beginners go, "Well, then I don't need that anymore," which is the wrong lesson. All beginners need that stuff when they're beginners. Once you're strong there, you stop training that because you've only got so much time to train.
Yep.
So
at first you're putting golf balls into the bucket, then you're putting marbles in the bucket, then you're putting sand in the bucket, and then finally some water goes in, and then you're good.
And then you just go get a bigger bucket.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Todd, we'll keep it short and sweet, but thank you so much for sharing that. Like I said, to the people watching this video, Todd is an absolute legend of arm wrestling who, at his old age, in some senses of 55, relative to typical strength athletes, is still dominating the world of arm wrestling. So go check him out, Toddzilla on YouTube, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. So Todd, thanks again so much, man.
My pleasure.
All right, now that we've had a chance to learn from Todd Hutchins, one of the strongest old men on earth, let's now have a look specifically how we can train to increase our old man strength. All right, so as we learned from Todd Hutchins, we need to really target our connective tissue to really develop that old man strength. So what we're going to look at today is a series of training methods that I would describe as both isometric and plyometric methods. And those methods are really going to target my elbow, which in the case of arm wrestling is the critical tendon junction that matters most for achieving that old man strength. So it's very, very simple. Biceps and wrist flexion and pronation, they're all critical muscular components of arm wrestling, for instance, but they're all dependent on the chain holding up. The chain being the tendons and ligaments in my elbow that allow me to have that stability and that subsequent grip on the road, if we do use the analogy of a car. We might have a big engine room in our muscles, but if the tires are slipping, it's no good. So the old man strength in this sense is a lot like that. The tendons and ligaments are going to allow me to continuously have access to my strength. So let's now have a look at isometric and plyometric training. All right, so let's start with isometric training first. Isometric training simply being static hold. It's getting a position where there's a load in your arm and maintaining it. The reason this targets the tendons so effectively in an arm wrestling sense is because of the increased force that happens. So when I move this spring just 10 centimeters, it might only have 20 kilos of force, but I move it another 10 centimeters and it really gets quite high, up to 60, 80 kilos. So I maintain a good position and I just simply hold. Okay, now I can feel this straight away. This is not a failure in my muscles. Straight away I can feel it in the tendons that join my wrist flexion muscles into my elbow. It's really, really good. So very simply, static holds or isometric training for as long as you can do it, at as high a tension as you can do it, for as many times as you can do it. Okay, old man strength, it's about accumulating time under tension. So spend as long doing these as you can. All right, so now let's have a look at the plyometric method of training our tendons and ligaments for that old man strength. Now, plyometrics can be best described as kind of explosively hitting into a resistance that overwhelms you somewhere during that arc of the motion. So it's not a weight that I can just pick up and put down. And the spring, once again, does this really well because I can move it here, but there's somewhere in this space right here, there's a point where the spring is stronger than I am. So I'm gonna hit into that. I'm gonna maintain my form. And when I hit that point of failure, it's going to send a message into my connective tissue that it needs to get more resilient, because it's not my muscles that are failing, it's the connective tissue that can't keep up with the force requirement. So to demonstrate what the plyometrics look like, again, I'll maintain my form and then it'll be. Now this really, you'll feel it in your elbow. You'll feel this in your connective tissue more than anything else. The explosive nature of it really does cause quite significant deep flare up. Now, you don't have to go 100%. You can do plyometrics at a lower level of effort, and that's often recommended because going 100% hurts, and you can't continue training if it's causing injury or if it's causing too much pain. So you can do isometrics at a much lower level. I can do this whilst listening to a podcast, and this is going to give me that cumulative benefit. At the end of the day, you look at a marathon runner's tendons, they're thicker than a sprinter's tendons, even though the sprinter's putting out a higher maximum force during his competition. The marathon runner takes more steps over his cumulative training and has thicker tendons. So given that thick and strong and stable tendons is our goal, 50% to 80% of your 1 rep max done thousands of times like this is going to be of immense value to getting your old man strength. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It does appear that old man strength really is a thing. I guess we could summarize it most clearly by just saying it's the increased integrity of connective tissue in our body that allows us to access more regularly and more immediately the strengths that our muscles possess. So it's definitely something you can get. You don't have to be an old man for it, but consistent time under tension will achieve that same outcome. So that is old man strength wrapped up. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for taking part in this video today about old man strength. And look, if it's something that you enjoyed, if you got something out of it, I would love it if you hit the like button, hit that comment section as well for me. Let me know your old man strength stories are. And most importantly, hit the subscribe button and share it with somebody who needs to know about how to get their old man strength. But alright guys, thank you so much once again. We'll see you next time.
Yes, that's a man!